Well, I'm Alberto Orozco. I'm CEO of Capitan Mining. We're currently exploring the Cruz de Plata project in Durango, Mexico, where we have a couple of targets there, the Jesus Maria San Rafael silver target, where we're currently doing our exploration, but we also have the Capitan Hill oxide gold deposit in the project.
Nice to meet you, Alberto. I'm Tom Peregoodoff, President and CEO of Apollo Silver. We're advancing the Calico Silver Project in San Bernardino, California. We announced a maiden resource estimate of 166 million ounces of silver back in February. And since then, we've been drilling and recently put out some additional news around those results this morning, in fact. And again, all results are positive. And in addition to California, we've got the Arizona Silver District, where we've commenced some initial target definition with the objective of getting drills out there sometime in first quarter of 2023.
My name is Michael Konnert. I'm the founder and CEO of Vizsla Silver. Vizsla Silver's goal is to become a large-scale producer of silver and gold from the Pánuco district in Sinaloa, Mexico. In March of this year, we put our maiden resource out, which was a combined 106 million ounces of silver equivalent. We're very rapidly progressing the project with 9 drill rigs turning as we speak, and our goal is to put an updated resource out towards the end of this year. Following that, the company will continue to explore its very large-scale high-grade district, in addition to the continued exploration at the new discovery of the Copala flatline vein. The future is very bright for Vizsla, and we intend to continue to update and grow our resources and move through to production.
Right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Lovely to have you all on the show. And we are going to learn a lot about silver markets today. Alberto, I'm going to start with you. Mexico, open for business?
Open for business. So far, Mexico is the largest producer of silver in the world. Not surprisingly, 2 of the companies today are exploring in Mexico for silver. Great geological potential. It has been perhaps a little bit more challenging than in previous years or previous cycles, but we're still open for business. And proof of that is that a number of mining companies have been able to explore and advance projects in the recent years.
Right, and Tom, I'm gonna flip around everyone and then sort of come back to the more broad-based questions. I mean, Tom, you're California and Arizona. Yeah. You know, people talk about tier 1 jurisdictions. They talk about the Fraser Institute, this, that, and the other. California comes under a bit of stick, though. You're not making those lists.
No, look at and the thing that investors need to really understand about California is that you can't look at the California as a single entity. It very much depends on which county you're in. You know, we're operating in San Bernardino County. I think, as you and I have discussed before, San Bernardino supplies all of the aggregate and all of the limestone for all of the construction in Southern California. There's more operating mines in that part of the world than there is in any other county in the U.S. And again, just to, we all like to talk about sort of time frames to get things done. I mean, I had my drill permits within about 6 weeks of making the application to the county for those permits. Compare that to other jurisdictions, and you start to understand that, not all things are equal in California.
Okay, and Michael, you're down in Mexico, so we're going to take Alberto's word as read. But you want to be a big producer. When you're going about picking tier 1 jurisdictions, what were you looking for?
Well, unfortunately, you can't exactly pick where these deposits are. We were alerted to the Pánuco district through a contact of ours, and I have to admit, the first time that we heard that it was in Sinaloa, we were a bit trepidatious. A quick Google and we thought, oh, wow, and I quickly realized that Sinaloa has probably the worst PR campaign against it. But, my motto is that a lot of opportunities are found between reality and perception. And so when we got to Sinaloa, we were amazed at how easy it is to operate there. We were amazed at how safe it is where we are. We're 45 minutes away from a resort town called Mazatlan, where there's about 300,000 snowbirds go every winter from Canada and the US. So, it's very surprising. So, and because of that, I think, the perception and the difference between perception and reality created an opportunity where we were able to put our foot on a very large, high-grade producing district that really had never seen any modern exploration. And so, because of that, we've been able to very rapidly move the project through exploration towards production. We benefit from the existing production infrastructure that the artisanal miners had previously. And, we find Sinaloa to be a, fantastic place to operate. And as Alberto said, it's the largest producer of silver in Mexico, the country. I think that Sinaloa eventually will become one of the larger producers of metal for the country as well.
Okay, now Alberto, is it easier being a Mexican based in Mexico with a Mexican company than it is from these companies coming from abroad, this foreign direct investment coming from abroad, or are you all playing on a level playing field?
Well, I think it gives you a bit of an advantage. I mean, that's part of what we have, and we're very proud of, and we believe it gives us the ability to work a little faster, a little more easy. All our team actually is Mexican based. It's a team that we've been putting together for a number of years. It's a team that knows how to advance and explore deposits, and just perception wise, I think it's always easy to be local, right? When you're playing local, I think it's a little easier. Not that other companies would have a difficult time doing it, but I think it does give us, being all in country, a little bit of an advantage.
So Mike, I'm going to jump to you. I mean, have you found any problems operating in a country as a Canadian company?
Well, no, and the reason for that, and I take zero credit for this, but we have an incredible team, and our team is Mexico based, and the people on the ground come from large companies like Agnico and Capstone and Pan American. So what Alberto was saying is very true, and we're proud to say that I believe 90% of our team in country is Mexican, and 70% of that are from the local community. So I totally echo what Alberto's saying. I'm very proud of what our team's been able to do, and I think having that local knowledge is important.
Right, and this is a question I want all three of you to answer, which is around the kind of help that you get from either the county level or state level, provincial level, or federal level from governments. We talked about Mexico. Okay, it's open for business. I mean, Tom, in the US, they talk a big game about wanting to help business, but what's the reality on the ground?
Look at my experience, and again, very much driven by the local San Bernardino County perspective, and their understanding of resource development has been very positive. There is no doubt that the ESG standards in California are high. Okay, everybody, they do lead the way. There's no, you can't argue that fact. However, what we have found is they're also there to help you work through the various requirements, whether it be air quality, whether it be water issues, etc. So look, I've been right in the right county, and I've been very fortunate that we've had the kind of support that we've had to date, not just from the county, but from the First Nations groups that we're working with.
Right, and Alberto, I've got to come to you on that one. So Tom raises a good point. Environmental standards are getting higher. I think, quite rightly, I think miners need to be held accountable to a higher standard, and potentially need to drive that themselves as well. What's the reality on the ground for you guys in Mexico? We've seen some, again, from us investors looking into South America more broadly, just down, south of you guys. Mexico, I think, usually gets thrown in the same basket, unfortunately, but that's the reality. That, countries like Chile, Peru, we've seen Ecuador, we've seen tales of political unrest and socialism making investors nervous. Again, what's the reality on the ground for you?
You mean in terms of, I'm not sure.
In terms of the pressure, the ESG pressures, because when you're a small company with a small market cap, with cash constrained, you've got to spend your money wisely. But if you're being forced to do things that perhaps don't make sense in terms of the business of trying to find silver, you've got some tough choices to make.
Yes, I think what we're seeing, particularly in Mexico, is more than a pressure from society or governments to perform. We've been seeing an effort from mining companies to step it up. And I think all mining companies that are, operate at a medium to large scale, companies that are, tend to be affiliated to the chambers that we know of. I'm the president of the mining cluster of Sonora too, so all the bigger mining companies are affiliated there. And what I can tell you is that there's a definite feeling of purpose from those companies to really perform on ESG. And there's a number of initiatives. We could do a whole show talking about it, but all of these aspects, environment, society, governance, that I think in some cases, even some of the mining companies in Mexico might be doing better than in other parts of the world. They're being innovative. They're talking about it. They're trying to bring government and NGOs to the table to discuss not only what we do, but how we can do things better, how we can bring more benefits to the country through mining.
Right. And Michael, what's your experience down there with regards to ESG pressures?
I think that's very true. It's funny. A lot of questions that we get, being CEOs of mining company is, well, how are you kind of being strong-armed or forced into ESG? And there's also the aspect of this business that is anti-ESG as well, right? But one of the things that I've always said is that, mining was doing, community relations, ESG, all this stuff long before it was topical, long before it was an acronym, because it was necessary, right? You can't just go into someone's backyard and start digging a hole without community buy-in. Otherwise, you look at all those stalled projects in South America. I mean, we've seen that playbook play out before. So, I think it's kind of in our DNA as mining companies, certainly junior mining companies, that you can't do anything without community buy-in. So that covers that aspect of it. But if you're thinking about net zero and carbon neutral mines and things like that, I think that will most likely become a voluntary aspect of these companies, because that's what the market is going to demand. But it's not going to, it's going to be voluntary in the sense that we have to kick it off ourselves, and then those who aren't able to kind of be imaginative around that will end up having a higher cost of capital and find it more difficult to build mines.
Well, I mean, you're really interesting points there with regards to this, because if we look at, you talk about voluntary versus regulated, right? Or at least, some oversight on these things. And if voluntary is an interesting concept, because different people have different standards, different companies have different standards, potentially because of their state of growth, may have very little money and very little options, and bigger companies perhaps got a little bit more choice there. I spoke to a CEO of a $2 billion company this morning. He's kind of looking at some of these net zero carbon and carbon credit initiatives out there, and said most of them he doesn't believe in, not because he doesn't believe in the concept, but he thinks that there's a kind of synthetic component about going out and buying carbon credits against a forest which already exists, saying, well, we won't cut this one down, but we'll cut the one down next door. That doesn't feel real to him. So do you know what I mean? So there's big companies are starting to think long and hard about what those sorts of things mean. And then when we've got situations like we have in Europe, where politicians are getting involved in the kind of environmental decision making around energy production, again, there's a big polarizing argument going on there about what's right and what's wrong. So how do you feel that the industry does need some kind of regulation or some kind of yardstick which is equitable across, it means the same thing for all companies across the industry? I mean, Tom, how do you view this? Should you
I do think that you do need standards to be set, but then you need to give people the flexibility to meet those standards in the situation that they're in, which, let's be honest, they're all unique. Okay, each mine you go to has a unique set of circumstances. So I do applaud the objective of setting standards, but again, give people the flexibility. And then I think from our perspective, then we need to right size those. What are the intent of these things? Obviously carbon neutral for an exploration group is a completely different proposition than carbon neutral for Escondida, for example. give me the regs, give me some flexibility to meet those regs, and make sure then internally with my management team and my board, I right size it, and they can change as we grow.
Okay, but you're an ethical guy, Tom. So that's fine for you. But as an industry, given the pressures being put on it by investors, by funds, etc., and looking in with the kind of history that mining has had, or perceived history that mining's had with regards to the damage that it's doing to the environment, not everyone's going to behave like you.
And I think, as Michael pointed out, and I think as Alberto alluded to as well, investors will look. Retail investors, let's acknowledge those guys are going to go where they think they can make a quick buck, okay? But let's also acknowledge you're not going to build a mine with retail investment only. You need institutions behind you, all right? The smart money, as you and I have discussed. You will lose that institutional support if you adopt, an approach to ESG, which is, let's say, flexible, depending on where you're operating.
Well, and Matt, the irony here is that, the metal that we're talking about today and the metal that we're all looking for is, critical and foundational to the ESG transformation, to electric vehicles, to solar panels. Without it, without silver, you just don't have these things. And, from 2020 to 2025, over 5 years, demand in the automotive space for electric vehicles is meant to double on silver. So, we're already seeing these pressures on demand, and we're also seeing supply erode through large scale mines in South America. So I think whether or not every exploration company is carbon neutral or what have you, I think silver is about to get very topical in the ESG space, and I think I don't think that the broader public really understands how crucial silver is to this ESG theme, and I think that will become very apparent shortly here.
Okay, I'll stick with the environment just a little bit longer, if I may, and then we'll come on to the kind of the green component versus precious metal market more broadly. So, and Alberto, as a sort of companies that's relatively new, just starting out, do you feel that are there any benefits to you? Are there any incentives to you, I should say, to behave a certain way, in terms of the environmental component, or do you just have to plow your own furrow, as it were?
Well, yeah, let me put it this way. I think there's probably more than one. For one as explorers, we have an interesting opportunity, and a very unique opportunity, actually, because we're setting the foundations for what could become a mine. And I think we need to look at our exploration beyond the geology and the drill bit, and to explore also what the social and environmental opportunities are within a project. And that's of top interest to us because when a project needs to move forward, social and environmental aspects are going to be looked at more strongly than the geological aspects of a mine. And so that's what's going to make or break a mine. Do you have access to water? Can you guarantee that society is going to be happy with your mine? Have you looked at the local abilities, capacities? What are their needs? What are their wishes? How are you going to displace communities if you start an operation here? And you have to look at it as building sustainable growth. And sustainable tends to be a controversial word in mining because it's an extractive industry, but you can build sustainable economies through mining. And that's by first putting a mine into operation, obviously employing some of the people around locally and getting providers around. But as the mine winds down and eventually runs out of reserves and needs to shut down, I think companies have an opportunity to leave other activities that have developed through the mine's life that can be sustainable through time. So I think as explorers, we have that very unique opportunity to, at a very early stage, start setting the foundations for a successful mine.
Okay, yeah. I think everyone on this call is going to agree with that. Let's talk about the precious metal market, and I'll come on to the green in a second. Okay, so if it kind of feels to me like normal rules haven't really applied for precious metals gold, for maybe 2.5 years. maybe slightly longer. They have not reacted the way one would expect as the economies, as the economy has unfolded as it has. Why do you think that is? What do you put that down to? Is it Bitcoin? Is it technology investment? What do you think, Tom?
Well, let's just you take a step back from your question for a second. If you look at the way silver traded from about 2015 up to about 2020, sort of pre-COVID, let's call it, PC, it traded in that sort of $15 to $20 range, somewhere $18 rough give or take, on average. COVID hits, and like all commodities, there's a big, strong uplift and we traded closer to $20 to $25 dollars an ounce. And the question now is, okay, we with the combination of obviously a recognition finally by central banks that printing all of this money has been a little tough on inflation, and second is the interest rate increases that we're seeing is starting to now make everybody think about a recession. Risk has come off. A lot of money is, as you pointed out in the pre-discussion, a lot of investors are really wondering where they go now. And precious metals have been impacted by all of that macro sort of impact. What I'm always talking to my investors about is the fact that, when it turns, and it is going to turn, everybody on this call has, we've seen this play before. It is going to turn. And when it turns, when you look at the precious metal sector, silver tends to A, come back more strongly, and B, come back more quickly. And so I think for patient investors in the silver space, and as Michael pointed out, we're not just the precious metal, right? We have a tremendous application in the greening of our energy moving forward. So, yes, right now it seems that relationship is a bit broken, but I think a lot of people moving into high yield bonds, interest rates are up, bond yields are up. I'm going to just wait and see how this plays out. But when it comes back, I think it's going to rush.
I mean, Michael, you've got to agree with that. Like, you're not just the CEO of Vizsla, you're also a partner in Venture Capital. You guys pick theses. You pick long-term theses which you invest into. So, what was your belief about silver when you kind of kicked this off? Because you had a very sort of meteoric rise, but in this market, are even you nervous about it?
Yeah, I mean, you got to be a little bit nervous, but that's just kind of human nature. And then you shake that off and realize that this is where money's made, right? This is, the crash of 2020 was exactly, the time to buy. And, this is exactly the time to buy right now if you want to make money in the space. It doesn't work to buy it at the top. So, that's how I've been looking at it. And, I thought I was going to have a slower summer, but we've been working nose to the grindstone all summer here, because this is when you do deals and you work hard and create momentum. And so from my perspective, this price drop has created an opportunity to enter the stock that's a third of what it was in the fall of last year. I think this is a great time to be buying the stock. Insiders, when we come out of a blackout, will be buying the stock right now for Vizsla. But just to go back to the precious metals theme here, and as Tom mentioned here, silver always lags and outperforms, and it also swings a little bit harder than gold does. But if you look at gold and gold being kind of that benchmark for the precious metals, it's held in there relatively well compared to the S&P. Now, the big pressure against it, of course, is a very strong US dollar. And the US dollar is only strong in relation to other currencies. So, if you think about it through that, if you take that apart a little bit, and if you look at the strength of the dollar index, that's the strength of the US dollar against a crumbling euro. So, it's the best out of the group of bad currencies. Sorry, but and that's really why it has a relative strength. And so, that relative strength against an ounce of gold is what's caused a bit of pressure on it. But if you look at gold in the context of other investments, it's done very, very well, and it has acted as a safe haven. Now, that to me indicates that silver is going to react very similarly, because it does lag and then it outperforms. And so when gold turns and has a leg up, silver will then follow. And we saw this in 2020, and it made Vizsla shareholders a huge amount of money. We went from 30 cents to $3.50. Right now, the company is fundamentally, it's far better than it was at $3 the first time around. We own the project. We have a huge resource. We're working very hard to increase that resource. So, if you look at things kind of on a fundamental and risk reward basis, I think this is an incredible opportunity to be buying. I said this, before, we jumped on recording this, but if you want to make, I should be careful how I say this, but, my suggestion would be, if you want to make some money, buy each 3 of our stocks and take the summer off and come back in the fall.
Well, you jest, but you don't. But and well sold, sir. But Michael, just sticking with that. Okay, you're giving good insight. Choosing my words carefully. You're giving good insight to investors about the mentality required to, manage their way through this kind of environment, right? And we have been to very similar sorts of advice, which is now is a good buying time. You're buying stuff at a discount. But what do companies do? You guys, you must be looking around at some of these cash constrained companies, some of these management teams, and which there are many who don't actually have a view about how to play this market and not sure if they're going to come out the other side, and thinking, well, the management team may not know what they're doing, but the asset is quite nice. Do you go more into buying mode? Because you all say to me, we're always looking, but are you more into buying mode in an environment like this? Michael, I'll go with you.
I would say with Vizsla, we've always had a very healthy corporate development outlook, and our team works hard on opportunities, but we're convinced that this is our perspective, that we're the best opportunity that we know about right now, and so we're totally committed to unlocking value with the drill bit at Panuco. And if we were to do something, it would have to be on something that we consider to be as high of a quality as the Panuco district, which took years to put together for us here. But I would say that with our putting an Inventa hat on, we do look that this is a great opportunity for consolidation in the industry, and like I said, this is where deals are done, and you can see a few of the transactions that the Inventa team have done recently, and I think it's going to create a lot of opportunity at this low value point in the market. But again, it's important to always be looking and flexible on corporate development. But as far as Vizsla goes, we're really kind of singularly focused on unlocking value from the Panuco district.
Right. Okay. And it's where fortunes are made, and maybe sometimes fortunes are lost if you pick the wrong horse. And Tom, you've got a team there. Your board and your shareholders means you've got access to capital when you think it's appropriate. Are you looking for M&A opportunity in this environment?
Like you said, Matt, we're always looking, but I will say this, our filters gotten even finer, things that, a rising tide floats all boats. Right now we are much more focused on real value because, not to take away from Michael, but, I think if you want to look at a silver opportunity, in a safe jurisdiction, you can't really go too far beyond 166 million ounces at Calico. But anyway, we can debate that offline. I'm not going to dilute that. Okay. I'm not going to, I think we've got a project that is tremendously undervalued right now. And I'm not going to take on a kind of tier 2 opportunity just for the sake of growing in this kind of space right now.
And what about you, Alberto? You're the coal face, to mix my metaphors and commodities. You must see projects and assets, be aware of projects in Mexico, as you say, one of the great historic self-producing countries in the world. Do you get tempted by that, or do you need to kind of just stay the course and focus on what you're trying to deliver?
Well, I think you always have to be open to opportunities. There sometimes are. It's difficult, I think, to find a good opportunity that really jumps at you. But sometimes there are opportunities, and as a company, we're open always to see if there's anything that comes. And like Michael said, I think it is a time of opportunities now. There are a lot of stories that are undervalued. Whether there's one out there for Capitan, we'll see. but there are definitely some stories, particularly in Mexico, I think that are way undervalued.
Okay, and I want to talk about the markets more broadly, if I can, just in terms of again, you've given us the kind of sales pitch for silver, but like I said, very nervous investors out there trying to work out how they treat their cash. Do you think they're right to be in kind of risk off, cash in hand mode for now? There may be people out there like hunting for the bottom of this cycle. There may be people who are just, quite frankly, I don't have as much disposable income or discretionary spend as I perhaps did before COVID came along and changed the inflationary environment. I mean, how do you empathize, sympathize with that, or do you think they're missing out on deals? Tom, what do you reckon?
Look at it's always difficult to pick the bottom. Okay, but I think in the current where we're currently at, when it turns, it's going to turn pretty sharply and turn pretty quickly. So I think that people who are 100% out are probably not right. People who are 100% in are probably not right. I personally am hedging a little bit, keeping some cash, keeping some powder dry, because there's some tremendous stories on sale right now. And I think that the discounts will get even further as we work our way through what is traditionally the summer doldrums. Michael?
As Tom said, it's impossible to pick the bottom, same way it's impossible to tick the top. But is there, a lot of these companies are down by 2/3. Is there another 2/3 to go? Hard to say, but I think you're, on a risk reward basis, it's a pretty good opportunity. Now it is, as Tom said, I kind of chuckled. It is wrong to be 100% in. As I am, but it can be a bit difficult. But it's a good opportunity to if you've been watching stocks, or you liked it at all-time highs, this is a great time to be buying these equities. And again, I definitely caution against being 100% into junior mining stocks, but having zero exposure is not the right way either.
What about you, Alberto? What's your investing style? I'm intrigued.
Well, more than my investing style, with this conversation, it makes me think that there are two types of entrepreneur mentalities. And there's one that is afraid to lose, so they don't do things. And then there's other one that is afraid to miss on the opportunity. And that's what gets you into action. And I think I can apply into investment as well. And right now we might be in the middle point in between those two, where people are not really sure whether they're going to lose or if they're going to miss an opportunity. But I think it's starting to become clear that there is an opportunity here with equities in exploration.
And how are you finding your shareholders reacting? Because I've been sort of quite amazed at how money changes people's behavior. When times are good, everyone's invincible, and when times are a little bit tougher, maybe the only invincible thing is a kind of a balanced risk-adjusted portfolio. But we've seen people go from polite conversational inquiring type questioning of us through to just the cracks are appearing. It's a difficult time, and I have a lot of empathy for that. I don't have a lot of empathy for when they're rude to other investors, but there we go. How are your investors dealing with it? Because you saw again, everyone's come off recently. You had a big surge and big response. When you earlier in the year, you could do no wrong, and now the market's a little bit tighter. Your investors being polite and civil, or are they questioning your management style? Alberto, I'm going to stick with you on that one.
Yeah, okay. We've really worked on trying to get investors that are in the company for the long term and that understand that there are going to be ups and downs, that understand that markets can get ugly at some points, but understand also the fundamentals of the project and the company. And in those conversations, I think our investors understand where we are now and believe in the potential of our project.
And what about Tom? Come on, you've always been quite blunt about some of the reactions from from the retail market out there. What do you reckon?
It's a range, okay. good, bad, and indifferent. Yeah, I think as I've recently pointed out, Jupiter participated in the $53 million raise we did a year ago. And I can tell you they've been purchasing reasonably aggressively through this, and they're now an 11% shareholder on a diluted basis. So, if you want to think about what is the smart money doing, those guys they're patient. They understand the timeframes that we deal with in this industry. At the other end, I'm getting irritated calls from retail shareholders who, they really don't understand what they're investing in, to be perfectly blunt, and they probably shouldn't be investing in the industry, just simply because they just look at it. You go buy a lottery ticket. I mean, if that's your approach to investing, they think they're a genius in a time of a bull market, but this is the kind of market where serious investors make serious money.
It is. Michael, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've definitely got some emails questioning, why we didn't do something, at all-time high share prices and things like that. But of course, it's hindsight's 2020 is kind of how I look at it. But and I get that. I get the frustration. It's a frustrating. I mean, you put a ton of money into something and it goes down by half or whatever. It's frustrating. But I think that's why it's important. I think all three of us, are doing a great job here by getting out and talking to investors in a time where most people go and turtle away. We're here. We got nothing to hide. We're going to come out of this with a huge amount of momentum. And the serious investors, both retail and institutional, that follow Vizsla have been participating in these buying opportunities. So, again, it's kind of really a test in human nature, isn't it? Where you kind of have the euphoria of highs and the despair of lows. But if you can kind of keep a cool head, you can make a hell of a lot of money during this time.
Cool, calm and collected. Look, I'm going to ask each of you to kind of take us out with like a 2-minute sales pitch for your own projects. Michael did such a good one for all three of you at the beginning, but I'm going to ask you this anyway. Alberto, I'll start with you first. Give us your 2 minutes.
Absolutely. So we are exploring the Cruz de Plata project in Durango, Mexico, right in the middle of the silver belt. This is a project that holds the original mines of the Peñoles Mining Company. These were the Jesus Maria and the San Rafael silver mines that were operated back in the late 1800s, as is the case with many Mexican projects, old mines that get rediscovered. And we've been expanding on that trend. We own most of a 3-kilometer trend of silver veins that are really continuous in both that strike continuity and down dip. We found that they're really continuous, and they have great continuity on thickness as well, around averaging roughly 10 meters. And on top of that, we know that we are in early stage of discovery, even though this is developed to some point because there's a resource, 15 million ounces of silver, 300,000 ounces of gold in a gold oxide deposit. We're still at an early stage of discovery, particularly in the silver. Now, on top of all this, we also have the Capitan Hill oxide gold deposit. That's where the 300,000 ounces of gold are located. And that's where we focused at the beginning of the company, because pivoting to the silver. And just that we haven't issued a new resource on that, but that we've roughly grown the footprint of that deposit by double. So that's where we're at now. We believe the future is mostly with the silver potential, where we continue to find a lot more new data through our drill program that is encouraging us to feel that there's a really big system for the silver here. And just to finish it off, we only have 53.7 million shares issued. That's not a lot compared to most other companies out there. No warrants. We've tried to grow this company very responsibly and to try to keep just that share ownership really tight. And I think we've managed to do that.
Thank you very much. Tom?
Sure. Look, I'm going to steal from Michael's story. I absolutely agree with the sentiment around opportunity lies in that space between perception and reality. Okay. And I think there's a perception around resource development in California that is not the reality that we are seeing in San Bernardino County. So, I think from an investor perspective, when you look at Apollo, You've got to look at the silver resource. It's one of the largest undeveloped silver resources in not just the continental US, but in North America. I think that the other thing that investors have to look at are the fundamentals, and it's around team. You give the right team the wrong project, they'll quickly move on and get the right project. Conversely, you give the wrong team the right project, and you're going to burn some capital. So you got to have you got to have team. You've got to have access to capital. You've got to have a treasury that's going to help you move through this difficult time. And I think what you'll find in Apollo is we tick all those boxes. All the investors need to really think about is that perception versus reality when it comes to resource development in California.
Thank you. And Michael?
So at the beginning, I said that, Vizsla's vision is to become a large scale producer of silver and gold through the Pánuco district. And, that certainly has been our vision from the beginning. But what's changed recently is that I think it's clear that we're going to have a multi-100 million ounce district here. And there's a few reasons for that. We've had success. We had our initial discovery at the Napoleon vein back in spring of 2020. And since then, we've grown that and Tajitos into a very large resource, over 100 million ounces of combined silver equivalent. When I talk about silver equivalent, it's silver dominant and gold. There's very little base metals. But what's changed recently is that we made a discovery of a flat lying, as opposed to a vertical structure, a flat lying Copala vein. And Copala has been a real game changer for us because it's allowed us to add ounces very, very rapidly, but it also gives us the pathway to a larger scale underground mine there with the flat line orientation of the Copala vein. So that in combination with the existing resource that we put out in March has really opened the scale of the project. And I would urge investors that are following Vizsla to follow developments at Copala, because we're putting out news every 2 weeks basically from either Napoleon, Tajitos, or Copala, and it's every news release we put out is substantially growing the resource. And why that's important is, as we come out of this market, Vizsla, we've just recently listed on the New York Stock Exchange. I believe that we're going to, lead the pack here with momentum. We have 9 rigs turning. We have, growth profiles along all of our veins. But the craziest part about all this, and if you remember one thing from this panel, this presentation, is that where we have our resource is less than 5% of the overall vein strike. So we're closing in on 100 kilometers of vein strike in the district. We've drilled and put a resource on less than 5% of that. So this district can grow very rapidly. We have excellent production infrastructure, and I think it's going to be a very exciting time as we exit this bear market here.
Brilliant, guys. Great summaries there. I'm in danger of becoming a silver bug now. I'm a converted. So like anyone listening to this, these are 3 companies where I respect what the teams are doing on the ground, doing things the right way, in a real way, in difficult times at the moment, but these are the guys more likely to succeed when we come out of this dip. So Alberto Orozco, CEO of Capitan Mining, Tom Peregoodoff, President and CEO of Apollo Silver, and Michael Konnert, President and CEO of Vizsla Silver. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Matt.